This is the title of my first book, which is not just about breaking through the barriers to boys' achievement, it's also about developing a caring masculinity, which is something we should not lose sight of. This came out a couple of years later. It's like a supplement to that book, the same barriers described, but brand new. And then the very next thing, because more people want me to do parents' evenings, and I've got evenings, I produced this book specifically for parents to help their boys to succeed. This one, I was sitting at a conference on one occasion delivering to a large group, and somebody came up to me at the end and said, everything you say is really is true, you know, but it has to start in early years. My colleague Linda Talent and I wrote this book together a few years ago, but the very latest book that I've written, asking the boys what they think, because they're very clear on what makes a good teacher. My name's Gary Wilson, and I've been working on raising boys' achievement since 1993. You'd have thought I'd have got it sorted by now, wouldn't you, really? But sadly, there haven't been too many people working on it. I'm particularly excited to be contributing to the work of this group because it's the first thing that's happened in many, many years. And I have been focused on working in the classroom and for local authority and as a consultant and author myself for all those 30 years. And I am delighted to be part of this. It started for me quite innocently. In '93, we had an Ofsted and we were told there were three things wrong. There was a problem with the way we're delivering collective worship. There's a problem with the plumbing in the science labs. And the girls were doing significantly better than the boys. Could we sort it out? So we set to. Some things take longer than others. As you know, it could take a long time to get a plumber. But the gender stuff, what I did there was I set up a working party. And I called it the Gender and Achievement Working Party, which is a bit of a mistake in retrospect, because the acronym for that, if you worked it out, is GAWP. Now, to GAWP at something where I come from means to sit and stare at something for a long time without doing a great deal about it. And that's exactly the way it felt. We did loads of research. I mean, we discovered in America in the early 90s, they'd done a piece that seemed to suggest that girls have got superior listening skills in the womb before they're even born. Yeah, I know. Experts at the time would tell us things like baby girls in cops will smile at smiling faces, while baby boys would smile at balloons. You can try that at home if you like. Then when another expert said, if you give a toddler girl the kind of toy that she likes, like a doll, to make up a story with it, a toddler boy the kind of toy that he likes, like a car, he'll just go brum. So at that point, I thought, actually, maybe we're starting a little bit too late then. As a secondary teacher, you know, maybe leave it till year 11 is a little bit too late then. Well, of course it is. You know, taking a group of boys on one side, the CD borderliners or boys on the borderline, Bobs as somebody unkindly call them, starting to mentor them beginning of year 11. Come on, lads, far too little too late. So I thought we need to start lower down the school. And year 8, in my and many other people's opinions, it can be a very tricky year for boys, a time at which some boys can start orientating themselves away from education, often because they come under the cosh of the people I call the peer police. Peer pressure starts in early years. You know, you can't with that, you're a boy. That's pink, what are you playing at? By the time they get to year 6, and I can honestly tell you, I know this to be a fact, virtually every single year 6 class in this country has got a small group of boys who are attempting to drag other boys off cliffs. I call them the peer police cadets. If we can't deal with it, and I can show anybody that's interested in how to do it, we can deal with it in year 6 by giving them a positive focus for their natural leadership ability. The clues in the title, they're peer leaders, and we can actually turn them around. If we don't, by the time they get to year 10, they start running high schools. There are high schools all over the country run by small groups of boys in year 10 who are telling other boys whether it's okay to care, to share, to sing, to dance, to feel, to write. And this is something which is absolutely critical to our boys all the way through. We have to start right at the beginning. We have to start not just in year 8 in high schools, but preschool. And what I did with my group, as I took a group of boys in year 8 on one side, and we started to work with our partner primary schools, where we went down and helped out with nursery and reception with reading and with writing. We did some drama with them. And these were boys who were identified as peer police cadets. And we went down, and it was a lovely day. We all went down and made all the little ones, show them how to make pancakes. You get the idea. But we started lower down the school. We started to work cross phase. We did lots of cross phase literacy work, and that's really important because we are short of male role models in schools. We know that. But to get some of those older boys to help with those younger boys can be massively powerful. To go down and work on work experience, to go down as ambassadors teaching maths or geography, whatever it might be. Because those little boys really look up to the big boys. Now, you know, when we ask why it's not on the national agenda, I mean, why is it not on the national agenda? Well, I would say, in all these years of experience, I don't think it's on the national agenda because people are worried that if we focus on boys, then doesn't that mean the girls are going to suffer? Now, I call that sloppy thinking. Anything that we do that looks at the attitude, the behavior, and the performance of boys is bound to have a positive knock-on effect for the girls, because it can be boys, can't it, that sometimes behave in ways detrimental to everybody's learning. I would also say all the strategies that I talk about and write about in 6 books now are all those that hit all those buttons for boys without disadvantaging the girls. And if you, like me, and I'm speaking to schools here, if you're trying to turn out decent young men, then that's the benefit of everybody. It is sloppy thinking to think that the girls are going to suffer. Why else might it not be on the national agenda? Is it simply because we're talking about white working class boys and actually they don't really matter? As that underachieving white working class boy myself, I feel most angry about this particular element, and I don't think there's any doubt that this is a key thing. This is the latest book that I wrote, and I'm showing it you apologetically because it should be the first book I wrote, because this is boys talking about their experiences, and that's the place to start. I mean, it were rubbish. Now, that's not a review, but this is one boy, when I asked him what his school had been like. There's some 15-year-old boys in the Northeast. One boy said, it's been rubbish. I said, why? He said, well, you go from classroom to classroom and nobody ever greets you happy. Another one said, yeah, do you know what I hate? It's when a teacher's been teaching you for a year what's passion in the corridor, and they don't even say hello. Another one said, yeah, do you know what? If you get sent to that special room, they call it the remove at our school. When you get there, it's just full of angry people, and that's the last thing you need. Now, I can honestly tell you, when the head teacher heard the kinds of things those boys had to say, he immediately instigated some changes. It's so important that we turn up, that we bring our personalities to school, that we are real people for those youngsters. You know as well as I do, there are young people in school for whom nobody's eyes light up when they go home. You also know that if youngsters loved, they come to school to learn. If they're not loved, they come to school to be loved as well. And it's so important that we're real people for those youngsters. So asking the boys exactly what they think, really, really significant. Right from the beginning, they'll tell you all the things that they're doing wrong and all the things that they could make a difference with, and so on and so forth. My boys, back to my boys in year 8, I call them top lads, by the way. There's a reason for that. You take a group of boys out for anything in the high school, they immediately assume they're in trouble or they're stupid. So there they were, my top lads. And every Friday morning we worked cross phase. But I would suggest to you, I have said that we need to start earlier, but that's not early enough. We need to start preschool, because this whole issue starts preschool. Boys develop language slower. Girls use between 10 and 30 times as much language in their play, depending on which research you look at. Peer pressure starts in nursery. Boys tend to be less independent. And all of those things can be helped by engaging with parents. Now, that was the next step for me at my school. We worked with the boys lower down the school. We worked cross phase, and I thought we need to engage parents. And the first parents' evening I ran in '93 at Newsham High School, 77 mums and 5 dads turned up. Yeah, I know. It's getting a little bit better, but not a lot. And during the course of that parents' evening, a lot of mums were saying they were still packing their boys' bags at the age of 15 and 16. And in any meeting that I go to, whenever I mention that, a little frisson of guilt goes around the room. And one or two of the men are going, oh, my wife packed my back for this morning. Is that a problem? Of course it's a problem. Independence, literacy, talking to them. particular parent session that I delivered in Dewsbury, a very poor part of Kirklees, and it was an infant school, and just 5 mums turned up, and they brought their sons. I think they thought I was a magician. I was going to wave a magic wand and the boys would be all right. And I talked to them about the importance of the older males and the closer the extended family reading to them and with them and not stopping just because they could read, the importance of joining a children's library, the importance of sitting around tables and eating and talking together and all of that stuff. And this one mum came up to me at the end. She said, "That really interesting, that stuff, Mr. Wilson. That stuff is said about libraries and that." Because our Marcus, now Marcus was 5, was swinging on the curtain behind me at the time. She said, "Our Marcus has been said for ages, can I join library, ma'am? Go on, ma'am, can I join library?" But he said, "No, you bloody well can't." And I've been using it as punishment like. But bearing in mind what we said, I might let him join. But I thought, the other thing she said was, and we were watching telly the other night, me and our Marcus, and he said, "Can't we have a tea around table at kitchen, ma'am? Go on, ma'am, can't we have a tea around table at kitchen? Like they do on Simpsons." Simpsons, positive role models, who would have thunk it, eh? But we need to engage with parents. We need to double our efforts with that because it is difficult. The ones that you want to see, the ones that never turn up. We have to get those messages across because if we don't, it's like writing a little internal whiteboard every day, and every night they're going home and it's been wiped clean. Are you with me? So, starting earlier, a big area, and I've got it down to about 28 reasons why some of our boys are not doing so well. 28 different barriers, about a third of which are related to literacy. And so a lot of the work that I've been involved with have been to do with precisely that, helping boys in developing literacy. It all starts when they're forced to write before they're physically and emotionally ready to do so. In the foundation stage profile, you'll know girls outperform boys in every single area, including physical development. And physical development is not just about gross motor skills, it's about fine motor skills. And my message to the government, anybody else who cares to listen, if you want to make sure boys continue to underachieve, carry on doing this. Carry on forcing us to force them to read and write before they're physically and emotionally ready to do so, because that's what you've been doing in this country for a very long time. How many males do you know have developed a fine, beautiful cursive handwriting with which they felt justifiably proud unto adulthood? How many young boys do you know have been denied a pen license because their writing in pencil isn't quite good enough? And they never feel as though they're quite good enough from then on. And when they get to the examination room and the teacher has said, they've got to be able to read it, they've got to be able to read it, the boy's writing so slowly, you can only do 2/3 of the question. Masses of issues around literacy, the importance of reading at home, the importance of boys reading fiction, because reading non-fiction is not helping our boys. Keith Topping, huge piece of research in America, 180,000 high school students. What was clear was that girls tend to prefer to read fiction, boys tend to prefer to read non-fiction. But we know that, we know that instinctively. But the main issue around it is boys are not reading properly. They're reading non-fiction, but they're flicking from the back to the front. Guinness Book of Records. A bandit during a free reading time at the library at high school has got fed up with them charging in and fighting over the Guinness Book of Records. They read blood on the pages, it flicked from page to page and so on and so forth. Boys need to read fiction because they're reading chronologically. If they're reading non-fiction, they're dipping in here and there. And 2/3 of mistakes that boys make in tests and exams are because they misread the questions. We are not teaching them to read carefully. Okay, this is just a flavor of the kinds of things. Older males and the closely extended family helping out in reading, obviously, is an obvious one. Buddy reading, cross-phase. Real purpose and real audience is the issue as far as writing is concerned. Boys in writing, well, girls in our schools, by and large, tend to be massively biddable. Boys, if they don't see a sense and purpose in doing something, they won't bloody well do it. Or at least they won't do it to the best of their ability. And writing is a particular case in point. On the other hand, we do things all the time that actually make it more difficult for them. We give writing as punishment. Can you imagine? The boy's done something wrong, so he's given a piece of writing as punishment. The next day he's got the same teacher, and the teacher says, "Right, boys, get your pens out, we're going to do some writing." The boy goes, "Why, what have I done wrong now?" "Nothing, but it's punishment." No, that was yesterday. It doesn't compute, does it, really? There are so many things that we have to do in order to address those issues around boys and literacy. And one of them is to get them to feel that there is some real sense and purpose here, to give them the kinds of texts that they can relate to. My boys, for years and years and years, did better than the girls because the texts that I chose for literature were of Mice and Men and To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't tell you which education ministry it was that removed those two from the syllabus, but it was a terrible thing to happen. A terrible thing to happen. Other barriers relate to the fact that they have boisterous playtimes. They don't like planning and preparing, writing too much. A lot of them think reading stories is a girly thing to do, and that's not a surprise, because a lot of boys are never wrecked by older males at home. They may never even see an older male around the house reading. If they do, they might only see them reading a newspaper or instruction manual. If they think I'm male, or read to find out. So getting those boys to think that reading fiction is for them too is massive. But really, kind of top of my list, all those issues related to emotional intelligence, all those issues related to helping those boys to open up. The phrase that I use is, we have to give those boys the words so they can unclench their hearts. In a sense, never mind literacy, emotional literacy should be right up there. And we have to create the right emotional environment for youngsters to learn as well. And at this point in the talk, whether it's 5 hours or 20 minutes, I would ask teachers present to think about whether or not they talk to boys and girls differently. Do you know, hardly ever do they say, yes, we do. No, mostly, no. And I'll say, well, try this. Group of boys at the back of the class messing about, how are you going to calm them down? Boys. Group of girls in the back of the class now, 20 minutes later, how are you going to calm them down? Girls. Categorically, we do. Categorically. I mean, and it might not matter. Oh, I'll give you some more examples. Midwives will tell you from the moment a baby is born, if it's a girl, the hold is gentle, voice is soft. If it's a boy, the hold is slightly firmer and the voice is slightly stronger. A colleague of mine told me at the end of her daughter's first week in nursery, she came home and said, there are 2 Neils in nursery, Mummy, and one of them's called Neil Behave. And there's this other boy called Gordon Bennett, but I don't know which one he is yet. I have to make teachers feel that is so significant for them, how they talk to boys and how they talk to girls. We ought to be teaching and treating boys the same way in which we would want our own boys to be talked to and treated. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But we make an awful lot of mistakes, and we could make life so much different for them. By putting them in bottom sets, we're killing most of their hopes and creating this dreadful spiral. Setting is at the heart of so many of these issues around boys. But I think I'm going to probably have to finish now, Mike. I don't know if I've had 15 minutes yet, but I think this might be an appropriate time to finish.
Well, thank you very much indeed.